you don't necessarily have to worry about like, man, how do I feel? How's this? It's like, no, because in the past 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 days, I've prepared my body. I've prepared my mind. I know what to do. Now it's just time to go execute. When you're in a very relaxed situation, you almost pull back on the reins a little bit because you almost kind of feel too relaxed, right? And those type of moments can spiral out of control like that. Any single time that you have a big league jersey on, it feels great. It doesn't matter what name says on the front. Right now that says Mets across the front or New York, it's the best jersey I've ever put on.
So actually, I want to ask you, what was your reaction when you found out that Juan Soto signed with the Mets?
Thank the Lord I ain't got to face him again. Because the last time that I faced him, I don't think the ball's landed yet.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the original Mets Guys podcast for episode 15. This week, we have an incredibly special guest, Tyler Zuber, a right-handed pitcher for the New York Metropolitans. Tyler, thank you very much for joining us. How are we doing today?
Good, man. Yeah, thank you guys for having me.
You got anything to say, Father, or are you just going to be quiet? I'm an awkward situation.
I'm super stoked. I'm super stoked to have Tyler on, and I can't wait to get into your journey to the Mets, because everything before the Mets, who cares? I'm can't playing. But I want to talk about your spring. I want to talk about so many. I got a lot of questions for you as a lifelong Met fan from '86 to 2025 over here. This is going to be. I'm very excited to have you on, and thanks for taking some time out to join us.
Of course.
Tyler, every single guest that comes onto our podcast, whether they joined the Mets last year, middle of the season, or they've been a Mets fan since they were born, we ask them what their top 5 Mets of all time are. So please give us your top 5 Mets of all time.
All right, so I did some homework on this. Tom Seaver, Dwight Gooden, David Wright, Mike Piazza, and John Franco. Honorable mention, DeGrom.
Yeah, you have to throw him on there.
Wait, now I got to ask you about John Franco.
All right.
How did he crack your top 5?
Well, so he actually was just here in camp, and I just learned that he was a captain.
Yeah.
As a left-handed closer. So I was like, man, that's probably one of the coolest feats to be, you look at, like, when you think captain, like, you think a guy that plays the field, like, you think, like, Judge, Jeter, David Wright, like, people that play the field. Like, you don't necessarily think, and, like, Salvador Perez was for us in Kansas City when I was with Kansas City. So, like, when you think captains, like, you think of people on the field, like, all the time. So for that to be a relief pitcher, like, that speaks volumes about like who he was and like his voice amongst the team, and then not to mention like all 300-400 saves that he had as a left-handed pitcher. Like that in itself. I mean, he pitched for 20-something years. Like it's pretty incredible.
We've never heard David Wright lower than 2.
Well, let me say this too. I'm not putting it. It wasn't like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's just those are like the top 5. Like, so it's just they're all grouped in there. Like
we're counting a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So sorry, that's how we're doing it. That's how we took it.
In my head, I had them like, all right, I'm just gonna like these are my 5 in no chronological order.
I mean, you started off with a bang with Tom Seaver and Dwight Gooden and David. Those can you can make a case for each one of them being in the top 3. So.
Listen, it's an incredible list all around. We've heard some ridiculous lists from lifelong Mets fans. Shout out Vinny, but it's a great list. So before we get into questions about your career, we're gonna go over some Mets news, some recent Mets news, and one of the biggest ones is Jose Iglesias signing with San Diego. Tyler, I want to ask you, what was the clubhouse reaction when the news broke?
From what I gathered, a lot of people were excited to see him sign. Obviously he had an incredible year last year. Played like an integral part in the Mets run in the postseason. You know, obviously, like there was like a lot of like good things said about him. So there was a lot of people that were happy to see that he got a deal. A lot of people thought like he was more deserving of a major league deal than a minor league deal. But
Yeah,
again,
totally.
he'll find his way back into the big leagues. And you know, I never played with him. I just only watched from afar. But from what I saw, I thought he did a great job.
I'm going to stir the pot here a little bit. Was there any resentment in the clubhouse about him not coming back to the Mets?
If there was, I have no idea about it. So I don't. Again, I'm not really sure. I don't really know much. If there was, they kept it close to their heart. So I'm not. To be honest, I don't know if there was.
Good answer. Very, very diplomatic.
It's almost like you were prepared for that question. The next news is obviously Jose Quintana signs with Milwaukee. Again, what was the clubhouse reaction to that one?
I don't even know what I was doing that day. You know what? I take that back. I was at dinner when I actually saw that he signed, so I have no idea what the clubhouse reaction even was. Even like the next day, like I don't. There wasn't. Again, like I was like bouncing around, going weight room, training room, kitchen, back to my locker, all that stuff. So I don't really know if there was people talking about it. Again, they talking amongst themselves and whatnot. So I'm not really sure.
Right.
Yeah, it's funny. I think last week I suspected that he would actually sign for somewhere in the 10 to 12, $13 million kind of. He only got 4.5 mil. Listen, I would love to sign a contract for 4.5 mil, but you know, as a Met fan, I'm like, you know what? Why not bring that guy back for 4.5 mil? But I know that David Stearns likes what we have right now, which kind of leads us into, you know, Max Kranick, Blake Tidwell, and Brandon Sproat. I know that Tidwell and Sproat were just sent to minors camp. Was it this morning, yesterday? But both of them really had a nice spring. And does this mean that Kranick is going to make the opening day roster?
I have no idea. I mean, there's still, was there like 2 weeks left, I think?
Yeah.
I think there's 2 weeks left in camp. So, I mean, the best way I can describe it is, you know, as long as you're still there, that means you got a chance. Until they call you in and they say, hey, we're sending you down, or you're getting traded, or whatever the conversation is, until that happens, in your head, like you got to assume you have a chance. So
Right. But I'll tell you, of those three guys, Kranick is the guy that looks like he's got the consistency, he's got the flow, he's got it going on, for lack of a better term. And I mean, Tidwell and Sproat had some like nice moments in spring, but but Kranick has just been like on the entire spring. I would love to see him make the opening day roster. I'd love to see him get a spot in the rotation. Right? I don't know. That's my thought on that. There.
yeah, I mean, now Kranick's he's having a great spring. Yeah, when I joined in Syracuse last year at the deadline, you know, Kranick was throwing the ball extremely well then, and he kept it rolling. Then obviously he goes from being in AAA to the very next day he's on the playoff roster,
Right.
and then spring, you know, obviously he's kept that same momentum that he built last season going, and you know, yeah, I mean he's having a great spring. The consistency, throwing the ball well, so yeah.
Great. So let me ask you this, because I think this is like one of the things that people don't realize, and you know, and you know, I'm no professional coach, but you know, I coach all my kids up through the little league system, a community little league over here. To find that consistency in pitching is a lot harder than, you know, it seems like you go out there, you throw the ball, and you get strikes. But like to find that consistency through and through, and to not have that off day. Like you can go out one day, you know. Even looking at like your first outing, Tyler, like I thought you looked well, but you walked a couple batters, right? Your next outing, you came out and like, you know, shut everybody down, didn't let up a walk, and just like was completely dominant in that second outing. To, you know, and it could be vice versa. We can go out, strike out the side, and have an immaculate inning, and then the next time you go out, you get lit up. like what allows for that consistency to just be there, and what's the work? Is it a mental? Is it mechanics? Like what is it?
It's like it's a preparation in between outings. There's a process. There might be like the physical like body work that needs to get done to get the body back into the right form throughout, like in between outings, and then obviously then it's like your mentality, your preparation leading up to it, and then obviously then as soon as the game time comes, you don't necessarily have to worry about like, man, how do I feel? How's this? It's like no, because in the past 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 days, I've prepared my body, I've prepared my mind, I know what to do. Now it's just time to go execute.
So how long do you prepare for your next outing? I mean, you're a relief pitcher, so do you know kind of ahead of time, hey, I might, does, a coach come up to you, hey, we might use you in this game, or be prepared to throw in this game, or is it, for a reliever, kind of just be ready at any point, at all times?
During spring, it's a little bit more scripted, obviously, like because there's so many guys, hey, you're throwing this day, you're throwing this day. So it's a lot easier. It's more starter-ish routine based. But when season comes, unless you've been told by the manager that, hey, you're a late inning guy, you're a long guy, whatever it might be, until that has been communicated to you, you're ready from pitch one until the last pitch of the game. And it's every single night. So, like, for instance, like Diaz, he knows he's getting the ball in the ninth inning. Potentially could be like eighth inning with 1 or 2 outs. He knows every night. He knows when he's getting the ball. So I wouldn't say it's easier. It might be a little easier for him to prepare because he knows when he's throwing. He knows if we're up by 3 or less, I'm in the game. For someone that doesn't have a role, there's a lot more preparation, meaning a lot more of the game that you have to prepare for.
So you're saying that where Diaz may be able to be in the clubhouse, grabbing a bite to eat, taking a nap, you don't have time to go to the bathroom because you may get the call for the bullpen that you got to go in.
Seriously, like in my career, I've thrown in the first inning, I've thrown all the way until the 10th or 11th inning. So I've thrown every inning in between. There is no like, hey, if it's late, like that's when you're throwing. Like you're throwing late, we're up. It's always been, hey, be ready after the 5th. Okay, so still that's 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th. That's still 4 or 5 innings that I still have to like stay engaged and stay locked in on.
Right. So I want to ask you, I was a pitcher in high school, and I always found it easier to pitch under, pressure situations. So would you rather pitch in a pressure-filled situation, or would you rather pitch, with a comfortable lead?
I feel like I rise to the occasion, so I feel like for me, pitching in pressure situations I feel like my adrenaline and my stuff upticks during those moments. If it's and this is kind of human nature a little bit, and something I've tried to be better at as I've gotten older. When you're in a very relaxed situation, may it be up by 5, down by 5 situation, you almost pull back on the reins a little bit because you almost kind of feel too relaxed. You're like, oh man, we got the lead. Like I'm chilling. I can do this, do that with the ball. And those type of moments can spiral out of control like that. It can happen quick. For me, I think I would prefer to probably do a little bit more pressure situation. I just feel like the intensity, the concentration, all that stuff kind of upticks a little bit. So I would say for me that situation.
Fair enough. It's a better situation. I can only imagine what it's like to be able to pitch in Citi Field in a pressure situation where everybody's on their feet, so loud. Yeah.
Now I say all this, and my first outing in Citi Field will probably be bases loaded, no outs with 3, 4, and 5 coming up. It's like, all right, here you go. I'm like, oh my God, here we go.
Have you pitched in city before?
No, I was actually talking to my wife about this the other day. There's 16 places that I have not been on the active roster and visited. I've only been to 14 major league stadiums.
All right. Well, we're going to change that this year, right?
Oh yeah, I'm gonna knock out the other 16 this year.
Okay, awesome. Continue on the spring. Brett Beatty continues to hit, continues to. Uh, I'm super stoked about Brett Beatty and what he continues to do. But Clay Holmes, right? He pitched today. I don't know if you.
Yeah, I kept up with it.
He kept. Oh my God! I mean, can you explain? First
Dude.
of all, can you explain to us like what is the kick change? I mean, I'm watching the pitch. It looks nasty, but I like Senga's ghost fork. Like you see what it's happening. You have Adam Wainwright's curveball, right? Like you just see that. You get to see some of that movement. Who is that guy that we saw? Mark Leiter Jr.'s curveball,
Oh,
right?
dude, that's filthy.
Right, Mark Leiter Jr. We were sitting on the right behind the dugout at Wrigley, and when he was with the Cubs, and we were just like our jaw dropped by his curveball. Mark Leiter Jr. Shout out to him, even though he's on the other New York team. I think he's still there, right?
Yeah.
So screw him until
until otherwise.
right. We're more fans of his uncle Al. But anyway, what is this kick change? What is it?
So yeah, so him and I we've talked about it because I throw one too. So it's you basically like on like a knuckle curve, like you'll spike the index finger and then you have this finger on it. So it kind of like the pressure is more like in between these two fingers.
Right.
So the idea with the kick change is for somebody that can't pronate as much, that allows them to set the axis of the ball in the way to make the ball go right without having to pronate. So like
This
when
would
you
have been
hold
really
on
helpful
like
to.
a lot of people, you got the circle change, different variations of the circle change. For the kick change, like you'll grip onto the ball and then you spike the middle finger. So then you'll actually if you look at the grip, like you'll actually see their middle finger being up like this. And then you just throw it normal. So then you just come out and throw it like a fastball, and then whenever it comes out, like the middle finger just kind of just does that,
Right.
just pushes it, and then it kicks it, and it kicks it that way.
This would have been helpful for me to know when I was throwing in high school, knowing that I could not throw a changeup for the life of myself.
You know what's funny? I actually got a cameo for Azriel from Dwight Gooden, and right when he went to high school, I got him I asked Dwight Gooden to show Azriel how to throw the changeup, like could not like. First, he didn't have a ball to like show it, and it was just, and he was telling us how he struggled throwing the changeup. It was weird. It was just, but yeah. So Azriel's,
I've tried the standard grip, the circle change with the pinky on the side of the ball, circle change with this finger towards the end. I just could never figure it out.
Yep, believe me, I was the same way. I tried every grip under the sun trying to get one. Found one in 2020, but it was too much movement and way too uncontrollable. And then I stumbled upon this one this off season, and it was great. Bullpens, and knock on wood, it's been great so far this spring.
I want to ask you, how good of a pitching coach is Jeremy Hefner? Because there's so much praise around the league for him, and a guy that's working with him. I want to ask you, how good is he?
I like Hef a lot. I like him. I like the way he can communicate with me or with us as a pitching staff. I like what another thing too that really like stands out about him is he's been in big market situation and like on a team. He's been in a small market team. He's had injuries. He's been up. He's been down. He's been designated. He's been called up. He's like there's not a situation that I could present to him that he hasn't gone through.
Right.
There's not a potential Hall of Famer that he hasn't already coached there's no situations out there. There's nothing. I don't think that there's anything that I could say, ask, do that would be like I've never seen that before. So there's something always that like is relatable with him. So that's something too that I really like, and he gets it too. Like he understands the new era of baseball. He understands the old school way of baseball. Like there's a very good mixture of it.
It's always interesting. I remember when he came up with the Mets. Right? I remember him making his debut with the Mets. I remember him quite frankly, struggling to find that consistency on the major league level. But like you can tell that he had the stuff, but the execution on the big league level is just so different. So I find it like so amazing. You have him with there are a bunch of other guys like that where they just know what to do, but their execution on the big stage is just so. It's not the stage. It's the I think the level of talent that's out there that just makes it so hard to execute. But you can see that he really knows. I mean, then you were able to see that he really knew how to pitch. It just didn't translate on the major league level. So,
Right. I mean, and again, like some really good coaches that I've seen have played the game for a really long time. There's some coaches that never hardly played, but yet they make great coaches because they understand.
Right.
They understood how to get guys out, prepare, all that stuff. And they'll tell you too. They're like, if I had your stuff, I would have made $200 million, but I don't. So now I'm telling you how to do it, so you can make $200 million.
Yeah, it's so true.
Yeah,
those who can't play teach.
yeah, you stole that from me. I was about to say that.
Sorry.
Can't believe you.
Sorry,
Can't believe you.
My bad.
Move on. Francisco Alvarez unfortunately broke his hamate, which I have no idea what that is.
It's like a bone over here, right? Something like that.
But yeah, it's a small little bone like right here in your hand.
He broke on a swing or something, right?
Yeah, that's typically as a hitter you see a lot of them. That's when they break it. They break it on swings.
So he's going to be out for 6 to 8 weeks. Did you? I mean, the way he controlled and was able to work with the pitching staff last year, and you saw the record with him while he wasn't hurt, and when he was hurt, right? Is that a concern or something that guys are talking about right now?
I mean, I wouldn't say. I mean, obviously it stings whenever one of your guys goes down. I wouldn't say it's a concern. Like there's, everyone that we have in there is there for a reason. So, and I think that, it's one of those things where if he goes down, there's someone there to pick him up. So it's kind of like a big brother moment. Like, hey, we got you. Don't worry. Like, you get healthy, you come back, step right in, and you'll pick up right where you left off in spring. So that's kind of like what I've kind of gathered a little bit. So
yeah, and listen, last year when he was hurt, Luis Torrens came in and did an outstanding job. Yeah, the record, maybe didn't reflect it, but I think at that time also the Mets were doing terrible anyway. But then the question was, who's going to back up Luis? Right, and then Jackson Reitz comes in today and hits a grand slam, and without that, kind of like he just got old barrel onto the ball and just the ball went flying. Is Jackson Reitz the guy? I won't ask Tyler to chime in over here yet, but is Jackson Reitz the guy that's going to make the opening day roster as Luis's backup? Or are they going to bring somebody else in?
It depends on how he continues to perform. If he continues to hit grand slams or home runs and continues to hit, quite possibly. I know that Mets Twitter, which is a very, very toxic place, wants them to bring in some veteran who's being paid a lot of money. Specifically, I've seen the name Salvador Perez a lot. But listen, Mets Twitter is a very toxic place. You can't really stay there for too long.
Mets Twitter is a delusional place.
That's true.
Right. It's a delusional place. Salvi, there's zero chance that. First of all, has there ever been a situation where a team traded their captain? Right. That I don't. I don't know if that's ever happened.
I think I've seen at least 6 mock trades for Salvador Perez since it came out that Alvy's going to be out for 6 to 8 weeks.
Tyler, would you have any objections to Salvi coming?
I mean, honestly, like that's a big bat in the lineup. But it's like you said. I don't think there's ever been a captain that's been traded.
Right.
I don't like in my head. I can't see the Royals even entertaining that. But again, though, that's you can play GM all day long. I don't know what behind the scenes, what's going on, what's being talked about. I don't know. Do I think that Salvador Perez would help the team? Without a shadow of a doubt.
Of course he would.
But again, though, like who knows what's being talked about? Who knows what Stearns is talking about? So I don't really know.
Right. And I'll tell you, as a Met fan, I probably wouldn't want to give up whatever it's going to take to get Salvi. When Francisco Alvarez, it's not like you could have a complication with this injury, from what I understand. It's a pretty, it's 6 to 8 weeks, right? 2 of the weeks we still have 2-3 weeks of spring training. He'll come back at the end of April, beginning of May, and and Luis Torrens can hold down the fort, and whoever it's good, whether it's Jackson Reeds or they bring some veteran free agent that bring back Nito. I don't know if he's still out there, but
he's on the Tigers right now. He actually in his first game in spring he had a home run, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, okay.
I think he had 2 actually.
But yeah, I don't know. Well, whoever it is, I don't think they need to give up their farm for a guy like Salvi. Unless they're going to pull off a deal for Adley Rutschman, but whatever. I don't want to get right. We will be delusional over here. But
anyway. So you can play GM until you're blue in the face.
Oh, that's all I do. First of all, in like MLB The Show, I don't play the games. I just like manage the teams. I sim the season and like get to the off season again. I like sim it till like the trade deadline. Try to pull off some trade deadline deals. And then kind of go through and then wait for the offseason. I love the offseason in MLB The Show.
Tyler, before we move on to the questions I have written down for you, my friend who is the president of your fan club asked me to ask you, what does it feel like to have a fan club?
Well, I tell you, I've never been a part of a fan base. I've never also had anything to where someone wants to be a president of my fan club. So in my head, I'm like, you know what? I've never been enough to where it's like, man, we need to make a fan club of this guy. Like, in my head, I've always tried to fly under the radar, just put my head down, just go to work, and look up. Like in my head, what I envisioned, 10 years ago was like, all right, I want to be the most unknown 10-year big leaguer that's ever played. That's like, man, who is Zuber? Like, and this guy got 10 years in the show, never heard of him. Like something like that, just like flown under the radar and whatnot. So I don't know. I mean, maybe I'm doing something right, and I got someone that wants to be a president of my fan club. And again, it could just be one person in there. I don't.
Listen, I'm definitely a part of that fan club.
Yeah, but wait, no, I'm in that also. I thought even that video that we tagged you in, that Azriel tagged you in, where I was saying how who I really liked was Zuber. That was the game. That was after the game that you walked those 2-3 batters. All right, that was after that game. So even though again, you can see someone who looks good, and even though they don't, they didn't maybe like get it, but like listen, you didn't give up any runs that outing, all right? I'm pretty sure you did, because you didn't give up any runs this spring, right? You managed to walk a couple batters. You got a couple strikeouts, I think that outing, and you looked good. So right, I'm in that fan base also.
Fair enough. I appreciate it.
when I sent you that screenshot and and you read president of the Tyler Zuber fan club, what was the first thing that went through your mind?
Oh boy, what did I do? What have I done that's made please let this be something like a good thing. Let's not it be like, man, he did something reckless and now there's someone reckless that wants to be one of my fans.
So he is adamant. When I texted him that you're coming onto our show, he was like, he's like, he's gonna be an all-star, he's gonna be awesome, this and that. But he's really got your back. I mean, if there's anybody that has a Tyler Zuber Mets jersey, it's him.
Well, he's probably one in a few because I don't know, I don't even have my own yet. So
how does that new jersey feel? The blue
anytime,
one, the pullover.
any single time that you have a big league jersey on, it feels great. It doesn't matter what name says on the front. It doesn't matter. It all feels great. So any jersey right now that says Mets across the front or New York, it's the best jersey I've ever put on.
But compare that with last year's disastrous of uniform situations.
I mean, honestly, I think, it feels the same. I mean, because the only one I wore last year, I wore Cleveland's in spring, but that was like, to be honest, that was just like a blur in my mind. Tampa's, yeah, it feels very, like, pretty much the same.
Yeah.
The thing I do like is there's no like buttons going all the way down.
Right.
It's almost kind of like a shirt, a jersey. But I do like the feel of it's great.
Yeah,
Right. And at least people now can read your name now on the back of your jersey.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah, I was about to say the only disastrous thing about last year's jersey was the fact that the names were, in Times New Roman font, size 8. But like the feel of the jersey is gonna be the same. It's not like they changed materials with the jerseys.
Yeah, but not only that is that all the catchers at the end of the game, they were wearing a different color jersey, like like a black jersey.
Their jerseys and their pants were two completely different colors than everyone else's on the field.
Yeah.
And most of like a starting pitcher in the heat of the summer, you could tell who was actually working hard out there.
Yeah, no doubt.
You could just tell how much sweat's just they're producing.
We wanted to ask you, as two people who have never gotten close to be able to get drafted into a major league team, what was your draft experience like? And was there a team specifically that you wanted to get drafted by?
My junior year, I was projected to go pretty high in the draft. I had a really good freshman and sophomore year, and my junior year was awful. Had a terrible junior year. Still had 4 or 5 teams that turned my name in to get drafted. Obviously, it didn't pan out. My senior year, I had, again, through on scout day, had 3 or 4 teams send me letters. And then I did some changes, and then all of a sudden, I come back and I'm throwing 93, 94, 95. And it was just like an uptick of like almost 4 miles an hour. It was a crazy jump. So when all these teams knew that I was, 89, 91, 92, when they came back to watch, it was almost kind of like a, whoa, this is something new. It started probably around end of April, start of May. A lot of teams started rolling in, and I was thrown in like these outlandish games. Like I was like closing ball games, and then all of a sudden I'm throwing like midweek down by 12, and they're like, "Hey, go get hot! You're pitching the 9th inning." I'm like, "We're not winning." Then I look up in the stands. There's 7 scouts there, and I'm like, "Oh, maybe that's the reason." So I was like, "All right, well, time to prepare like we're up by 1." So on draft day, this is kind of a funny story. So on draft day, leading up to it, probably 3 days prior, I had been on the phone. Like I'd get home from college, and I'd been on the phone probably 2 to 4 times a day with different teams. And I remember it was day 1 of the draft. I didn't hear anything, obviously. And I told myself I'm going to stay up really late that night, and I'm going to sleep in until. And I thought the draft started at 12 my time, so I'm like, all right, I'm going to stay up super late, and I'm going to sleep in and basically wake up, go get lunch, and then sit on the couch, and I'm glued to the iPad. So my phone rings at 8 o'clock that morning. The Reds called me and said, "Hey, are you or do you want to sign today?" I said yes. Hang up the phone. So of course, a 21-year-old guy whose dream is to play professional baseball just gets told that I can't go back to sleep.
No doubt.
Meanwhile, I stayed up till like 1 or 2 in the morning the night before. So I'm like, crap. Now I'm tired. And then the Red Sox text me, and then the Mariners called me, and then the Royals, and then there was one other team. I had 5 teams call me before the start of the draft. So I go and make lunch, and I sit down, and it says, okay, we're now about to begin the 4th round. And I thought, oh, good gosh, I just missed it. Like, I'm missing the draft. So now I'm glued to it. My dad is at work. He's a police officer. My mom took off work. So my mom's working on her computer doing stuff. Meanwhile, Dad's sending me texts. He's like, have you guys heard anything? The Mariners called me, and then the Royals called me in the 5th round. So I text my dad. I said, hey, they said next round. I'm there. And so the Royals called me, and he said, hey, we're thinking about taking you 6th or 7th, maybe 8th round. I said, okay, sounds good. Hang up the phone. Dad had just pulled in. I was getting ready to tell him what I just got told, and I get a phone call from the Royals again. I'm like, crap, what did I do wrong now? And he said, hey, this is the scouting director. We're taking you in the 6th round. Be ready, in 15 picks. So then I tell him. So then he turns his radio off because obviously he doesn't want to get bothered. So then we go. Now we're glued to the iPad. The scout texts me, says, get ready. 2 picks later. In 2 picks. I said, all right. He said, get the cameras rolling. So now we got the phones, angled at the iPad. They call my name. Fast forward to after that happened. We, as a family, my mom was sitting on the couch. Her phone was blowing up. Me and my dad go outside. And every time that we're about to cross paths, our phone rings again. We don't finally hug as a family for 3 hours after my name was called.
That's
Wow.
crazy.
We were like, the second that I was like, all right, thank you so much, bye. And I'd see my dad, I'd walk towards him, like, phone would start ringing. Like, hello? And then it's just like constant. And then finally it's like, all right, things have died down now. We've got enough congratulation text. And then we just put our phones down, and then we finally hugged it out, and that was the draft story.
Does the skipper of the team of the Major League Club call at all?
No, so I got a call from my scout, and then I got a call from the scouting director, and then post-drafted, my scout called me again and just congratulated me. The scouting director called me and congratulated me, and then the next day, the scout actually was driving down. He had drafted a guy out of Kansas State, so he just stopped there, signed him. The next, right after that, drove straight down to me, and then I signed my contract in our kitchen, and then he left and headed on wherever else he needed to go.
Wow, that's crazy. At what point in your life, in your right, did you realize, what, I have a shot at going pro?
I thought my senior year of high school, I was like, man, I might. If I can just throw harder, I think I got a chance. My freshman year, I was like, okay, I got a chance. Sophomore year, I was like, yeah, I've got a chance. My junior year is when I took a leap backwards, and I was like, man, I don't know, I got to pick it up, or otherwise, baseball's done this year. So I would say it started my senior year. But back to the question of if there was a team that I wanted to be drafted by, anybody.
Anybody.
I just wanted to play professional baseball.
Right. And I apologize for my lack of knowledge with this, but Arkansas State University, that's a D1 school?
Yeah, it's in the Sun Belt.
The Sun Belt, okay. Right. I mean, so you're getting D1 offers at that point, no?
Yeah, so I had pretty much everybody in the state of Arkansas. I was chatting a little bit with Ole Miss, but everyone in state offered me a scholarship except for Arkansas. They offered me a walk-on spot, and I wasn't. I just in my head, I was like, I'm not going to compete against 60 guys in the fall.
Yeah.
So I kind of had it narrowed down between Arkansas State, UCA, and Harding, which is a Division II.
Okay.
The way that they treated me, it was. I really enjoyed the way that they treated me, and I thought that I would get a good education and all that stuff. And so then, but ultimately, I'd like to go to Arkansas State.
Okay.
I mean,
Worked out well.
Oh yeah, so far.
most definitely did. Last year, when you got traded, I first want to know how do you find out you get traded? Did you find out by a news alert? Did the GM or the manager call you into his office? And then secondly, were you stoked to go to the Mets?
The trade deadline obviously is going on, and I knew that the Rays were big time like movers. Again, in my head, I'm thinking I'm the last person that was going to get traded. The names that had been, swarming, like had been going around was like Pete Fairbanks, Yandy, and Jeffrey Springs. Those were the three names that were kind of, and Poche and Sean Armstrong. Like those were kind of the names that were circling around. So when we went out for stretch that day in Tampa, we were Pete wasn't out there, and so in my head I was counting up the people that were out there, and there was 13 pitchers. Pete had just gotten out there late, so we were all like, all right, he's coming to say goodbye. But there was 13 pitchers out there, and Jeffrey Springs was starting that day. So like, crap, like that's 14. The new guy that we just traded for from Chicago's here. I'm like counting them up, like I'm probably the odd man out. But so I got called into the office right before BP started. So in my head, I'm thinking, yep, I'm getting options.
Mm-hmm.
And he tells me, he said, have a seat. I said, no. I said, I've done this process a lot of getting sent down. Like I know what I know what to expect. And he said, you just been traded to the Mets. And I remember looking down at the ground, scratching my head, saying, what? I said, I just got here. What do you mean I just got traded? Like, he said, yeah. He said, you just been traded. So in my head, I'm like, holy smokes. Like, so based on like how that year went of like, signing with Cleveland late, getting released out of camp, going to Indy Ball, going to Tampa, making it back to the big leagues and all that stuff, like going from no one wanting me to then all of a sudden someone wanted me bad enough that they made a big league trade for me was like, wow, like I'm all in on the Mets because they wanted me. So now I was like, I turned into so happy with where I was at with Tampa to then it was like, no, like they want me, like I'm all in.
Do you know the name of the guy that you were traded for, that the Mets sent to Tampa?
Paul how do you say his last? Gervais?
Yeah. Something like that, yeah. Gervais.
Something like that.
Very good, okay.
There was a joke that I'm 5'10", and I was like, apparently I don't fit Tampa's model, so they had to get a guy that's a foot taller than me.
Yeah, he's first of all, I watched him at in LSU when they won the Natty. He's a monster. Dude is 6'10". He's huge.
I've never seen him pitch. Couldn't tell you the guy if he walked in my room right now.
But is he a guy now that you're gonna kind of keep an ear out for? Like how to say he ended up doing?
I mean, obviously, yeah. Like I'm gonna keep an eye on and just see. Like, all right, it's funny. Like in my head, I'm like, all right, so Tampa made a trade, me for this guy. This guy gets up to the big leagues. If Tampa trades him, who do they get? And then I'll just kind of want to see that whole tree go down.
Yeah.
Eventually, if Tampa gets like a generational player for him, like eventually, like later on down the road, I'm like, you know what? It started with me.
Yeah, you got traded for Shohei Ohtani.
So that's kind of like in my head. It's like, you know what? Like I want to see how this whole thing plays out.
So I want to ask. This is not on the list. This question just popped into my head. Is there anybody in the big leagues right now who you really want to strike out?
Everybody. Because they're in the
everybody.
big leagues. Everybody. Because that means then I'm in the big leagues.
Let me take it up a notch. Is there anyone in the big leagues you want to hit?
Like with a ball?
Yeah.
No.
Jose
No,
Reyes.
no, because in my head it's like it's kind of a double-edged sword. Like, yeah, I just smoked you with a heater, but now you're on first base. So I would rather strike you out or get you out because then it's like now you're not on base. Now you're 0 for 1. Now your batting average dips. Now all your numbers dip because I got you out. So now it hurts you way more than it hurts me.
No, it's funny because Jose Reyes was just on some show this week, and he talked about how, they asked him like, who's the one player you hate, and he talked about like Chase Utley and the Philly, because the whole Phillies in disaster over there. So that's kind of like where my question comes from. Like he hates Chase Utley, Chase Utley hates him, but Tyler Zuber's got no beef with anyone, right? Not yet.
Yeah.
No, and I try to I don't want any beef with anybody. Obviously there's the competition. Whenever you get out there, it's me versus you. You're trying to take money out of my pocket and food off of my table for my family. So it's like it's a battle. It's not like a bad blood. I want to inflict pain on you. It's nothing like that.
So let me ask you this: if somebody, on the rare occasion, right, that somebody takes you deep, right, is there anything that he could do in the batter's box that would say, you know what, next time he comes up, I'm throwing at his butt?
Depends on why he did what he did. If he did it just because there was no backstory, like my team did something to their team, so therefore he did something crazy. No, but I would say too, as long as you are able to deal it, then or dish it out, then you got to be able to take it. So if I get you out in a big situation, I give a huge fist bump, a scream, a yell, whatever it might be, I'm not directing it at you. I'm directing it at the situation. So as long as you don't do anything malicious towards me, you look at me and you go like this or something like that, I got no problem with it. Listen, you hit a home run, you got a big hit, you celebrate it, fine, no problem, no worries. Just don't be mad if I do something to celebrate me and my team getting out of a big situation. You can't be mad.
All right. So let me ask you. So that reliever that pitches for Colorado, that guy, what's his name, Jeffrey Yan?
I played with him in the Dominican.
Oh, okay. He's always done that, right?
As long as I've known him, which has been 23, and he did it when we were losing. He did it when we were winning. So he was the same guy. He did it last year when he went to Japan. He's doing it now in spring training. So I would say as long as he does it normal, that's his normal behavior. I got no problems with it, so to say. But again, same thing. You want to act all this, you want to do these big celebrations, that's fine. But when somebody gets you and they do something like that, you can't be all let's fight, let's do a benches clear and brawl because of it, because you're doing something pretty stand out-ish.
Right. I mean, that's out there. I mean, I've never seen any sort of celebration like that on every single strikeout.
It's something now. But I'll tell you this, though. Being on his team and seeing when he gets to 2 strikes and seeing the crowd erupt in, anticipation. It's almost like they're grabbing the edge of their seats. They're like, come on, come on, come on, come on. Please let this happen.
Do it.
And then whenever you see it, the entire crowd, erupts like you just won the World Series. And again, we're losing by 2 or 3 runs, and you see him jump and do that, the crowd screams. You're like, wow. In my head, I'm like, man, I want to do something like that, but it's like, I can't do something like that because I'm not flexible enough.
Right. Yeah, I mean, you got to think that pisses off some batters.
Yeah, I mean, for sure. There's somebody out there that's they're going to get triggered by it. But then again, there's also some people that are they're going to pencil it in the back of their head. They're like, I remember him. So whenever I get him, I'm gonna try to do something, not to embarrass him, but to like, hey, you did it to me, so now I'm gonna do it to you.
Right.
All right.
Is
Okay.
is there any significance to number 53? Did you choose that number, or was that number, like given to you?
It was my first number when I got to the Royals, in the big leagues with them, and then I always told myself I wanted a different number in the big leagues, no matter with who I was with. I always wanted a different number, so I wasn't tied to it. So that way, whenever I look at the wall that I'll have in my house someday, and I have, a 53 jersey, a 29 jersey, a 72 jersey, whatever it might be, I can go back and be like, man, that was my time with so and so team. That was it. But then when I went to Tampa, they gave me 53. So I was like, all right, well, two spots. That's it. That's it.
Right.
Then I went to the Mets. And I was like, all right, perfect. Like someone's got 53. I want give me 54. And then we actually went to Amazing Day, and my wife was looking on the roster because she was trying to see like who all was on the team, who all might be there, and she's like, "You're 53 again." I was like, "Yeah." All right. So now it's like this would be my third team that I have it with. So now it's like, you know what? Maybe this is a sign that like this is my number.
Right. Maybe now you just got to stick with it. I mean,
Yeah.
it's been three
You gotta
teams.
own it. You gotta own it.
It'll be
And now
weird.
at this point, it's like, all right, it's my number now.
Right. I'm saying it'll be weird. You're gonna have three teams. You're gonna be with the Mets for your entire career. They'll switch it up. 53 is a nice number.
And I mean, now it is what it is. So it's all right. You know what? I'll own it now. So
So actually, I want to ask you, what was your reaction when you found out that Juan Soto signed with the Mets?
thank the Lord I ain't got to face him again. Because the last time that I faced him, I don't think the ball's landed yet.
By the way, sorry, to go back there. You know what just hit me while you were talking about 53? You know who wore 53 with the Mets?
Hefner,
Bam.
because he told me about it actually the other day. We were walking back from throwing on the backfield. He said that's a pretty solid number you got on there. He said, you want to know who else wore 53? And I said, let me guess, you. He said, yep. He said, you want to know who else wore 53? He said, there was another guy walking. Gosh, I can't even remember now. There was another guy. And I
I'm
was like,
trying to think who it was.
oh man, it'll come to me. If I swipe out of this, will it keep me on here?
It'll be weird. It'll be hard for us to send it to the editor because it messes with a couple of little things.
All right, I'll get a few though in a second. I'll tell you who he was talking about. Give me 1 second.
Gosh, and again, I'm terrible with names. He's a coach. He's the catching coach.
It was Bobby Abreu.
No, he's the catching coach. He's on the
Let
staff.
go,
right now.
Glenn Sherlock.
Yes, Glenn Sherlock. Holy smokes! Yes, he had it. Hef had it as a coach. When Sherlock left, when he came back, Sherlock took the number back.
Right,
Hef said I only got to wear it for 1 year as a coach.
and then Heath Hembry wore it,
Okay.
and then Eric Orze, who was
Yeah.
he wore that also. If you want to really go back into Mets history, there's a guy I don't know if he's related to your old skipper, but Eddie Yost.
I don't know. I don't know if there's a relation there. I'm not sure.
So, but we have not so much time here, but I wanted to ask you one question. Do you have a favorite story that you forever tell over a dinner table about your professional career so far?
Probably my call-up story. So spring training's rolling around in 2020, having a great spring. We're getting close to the nitty-gritty time, and I'm looking around the locker room. The position player side's still relatively kind of full. The pitcher side, there's like 20 guys with 13 spots available for pitchers. And there was like maybe seven of them were on contracts, either arbitration, guaranteed contracts, whatever. And so I'm counting it up, and I'm like, all right, he's hurt. He's not having a great spring. I'm having a really good spring. There's a lot of people telling me that they're fighting to get me on the team. Like, I think I might have a chance. Then COVID happens, all that stuff. So I'm like back at home training. Spring training 2.0 happens. I have an okay 2.0 spring, and then we're about to play the Astros in a sim exhibition game, and they had to move all of our stuff out of the visiting locker room and head to the Kansas City Monarchs Stadium for the next 2 days to get Houston stuff in there. And some of the guys had been told, like, hey, like, you're going to Cleveland for opening day. And so, but no one's told me anything. So I asked the clubbies, and they said, yeah. He said, just let me. Yeah, he said, I'll take your stuff. He said, we'll take it to the Monarchs. I said, okay, fine. So I go to the Monarchs the next day. That night, I get a phone call from Cal Eldred, the pitching coach, that said, hey, go to the field tomorrow, the Monarch Stadium, grab your glove, cleats, and your hat and jersey, and bring it back over to the stadium. He said, you're going to pitch tonight or tomorrow night against the Astros. I said, okay. So I drove over there, grabbed just a few things, came back, and there was a team meeting being held, and I was the only person from the alt site or the Monarch Stadium that was there. So in my head, I'm like, crap, I'm not where I'm supposed to be. I'm about to get in trouble. And I feel a huge paw hit me on the shoulder, and I'm like, I turn around, and it's Mike Matheny. And I'm like, crap. And he said, have you ever been to the principal's office before? And I said, once or twice. And he said, well, today I'm the principal. He said, let's go to my office. I'm like, gosh. I said, okay. So I walk in. He sits me down. He said, listen, he said, you've done everything in your power to make this team. He says, but not being on the roster, there's a lot that has to happen in order for you to make it. I said, yeah. I said, no. I said, I understand. I said, I didn't perform here like I did in spring training 1.0. I'm like, so I get it. He says, but he's like, just know you've done everything you could to make this team. I said, yeah, you said that already. And he said, I want you to go and tell your parents that you're going to be in Cleveland.
Wow.
And I said, so does this mean like I'm on the team? Like,
can you spell it out for me, please?
I'm like, what does this mean? He said, you're just going to be in Cleveland for right now. He's like, there's a lot that has to happen. He said, but you're going to be in Cleveland. I was like, so just to be clear, like, I'm on the team or I'm not on the team. And he's like, you're going to be in Cleveland. I said, so is this when we hug and you tell me congratulations? He said, no, not yet. Like, okay. So we go to St. Louis right after. In 2 days, we go to St. Louis. So we go to St. Louis. I throw that day. And he comes and sits down in front of me, and he says, you're on the plane heading to Cleveland. I said, can we hug now? He said, nope, not yet. He said, it's not official. He said, you're going to Cleveland. I'm like, because at that point you can have the taxi squad. And I'm like,
right.
So meanwhile, my parents are trying to book flights to Cleveland. I'm like, it's COVID. There's no fans. You can't come. So then we get to Cleveland, and they announce, the opening day roster, and I was on it. And so we're out in the outfield during BP, and he's walking around, telling guys, hey, be ready this situation, yada, yada, yada. And I looked at him as I'm looking around the field like this, and I'm like, can we hug now? He said, yeah, we can. Oh, my gosh.
That's awesome.
And then he went out and pitched 2 innings of shutout baseball.
And afterwards, I was like, holy. So I was running out there while God Bless America was playing, and I was like, man, my heartbeat is not slowing down. And I was like, so in my head, all these things happened like this quick. It was like, I'm about to pitch in the big leagues. I'm about to make my debut. Who am I facing? Where am I? Like, all these questions just started rolling through my head. I'm like, oh my gosh. And the first pitch that I threw in warm-ups, in my head I thought, ain't nobody touching me today. This ball's coming out a zillion miles an hour. And sure enough, the first guy I throw a curveball to hits a ground ball to first. I'm like, just how I drew it up.
Right. So did you know that you were going to throw 2 innings that day?
No. So I threw the first inning scoreless, and I was like, went 1-2-3, and I was like, all right, perfect. I was expecting a handshake, and he looks at me and he said, keep going. I was like,
It
sounds
was
good.
nice. How nervous were you when you got called into that game?
Honestly, the nerves didn't hit me until I got out there on the field. And after I made the first pitch, like it was like back to normal. It's like there was no worries.
Wow.
So I have one last question before we get to our little fun game that we like to play in our episode. Who's the young Met guy that nobody's talking about that you saw in camp that you're like, okay, I got this guy's going to be something good.
A young Matt that nobody's talking about.
Offense, pitching, whatever, all good.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. I'm looking in the locker room right now. Have you guys heard the name, and I might get it wrong,
Francisco Lindor,
Yes,
Juan Soto?
Soto.
No,
I think there are 800 million reasons why I think we heard of. his name.
again, like that's probably a bad one. Honestly, and he might be talked about it a lot, but I really think Jet Williams has the potential to be like something special.
Okay.
Like, and again, like I know, like he's high on the prospect list, and I know a lot of people have probably already talked about him, but like he may not have performed well in spring, but he has a lot of things that a lot of people should be very excited about.
Right.
Like when everything gets put together, I think he's going to be somebody that everyone's like, man, we got a diamond in the rough. Not really much of a rough, but we got a diamond.
We got a diamond. Well, listen, you know what? Between you think about like we have Lindor already, right? Vientos is showing what he's got. Beatty's having a killer spring, and we're all waiting for him to kind of take that next leap. But then you also got Luis Angel Acuna, you got Ronnie Mauricio, Jet Williams, this Jesus Baez guy who's also supposed to be, pretty decent. I mean, their middle infield or middle and left side of the infield, stacked.
Yeah, no kidding. The depth is there for sure.
And then you have guys who you didn't mention, like Ryan Clifford and some more of the outfield guys. And on top of that, the pitching that we have in the farm is quite incredible.
There's a lot. There's a lot of things to be excited about.
All right. So, do you want to take this game, Zuri?
I can take it if you don't want to do it.
All yours. Go ahead, take it.
So in every podcast we do, at the end of the podcast, we end it off with a little blind rank. So we found it fitting to have you blind rank relievers, as you are a reliever. We tried to get some Mets guys that we thought you'd know. So we're gonna give you 5 names.
For the record, I wanted to go really old school and throw out guys like Jeff Innes, who like.
At least give me people I know.
Okay, well, hopefully you know them.
I mean, we have a list, so we'll start this off right now. We'll start with Pat Mahone.
1 through 5, right?
Yeah.
I don't really know. I know who he is, but I don't know how good of a career he had. I'm gonna say I'm gonna keep it. I'm gonna say 3.
Put it at 3.
Okay.
All right, fine. Roger McDowell.
See, I don't know.
He was part of the. So, in fairness, he was part of that 80s into the 90s era of Mets baseball.
Tell me, was he a closer?
No, so none of these guys are closers.
So
They're all relievers.
All just standard relievers.
Yeah. One of the guys on the list became a closer later in life, but not.
4.
Okay.
4. We'll go Heath Bell.
So I love his sprint in. 2.
2. Aaron Hellman.
Heilman. Come on.
I don't know who that is.
Aaron Heilman gave up the home run to Yadi Molina in Game 7 of the 2006 NLCS
5.
but he wasn't that. He was the okay. Put it this way: he was the guy in the ninth inning, though, in that game.
Met, hopefully, because Mets Twitter, if they remember, they won't hound me for it. But 5,
Okay.
so I at least show some loyalty to him.
All right. So number one.
Number 1 is going to be Pedro Feliciano.
I got his autograph. My first ever Mets game I ever went to, I got his autograph.
So that's a very fitting number 1.
Okay.
I got his, Todd Zeal, David Wright, and my third base coach when I was with Kansas City, Vance Wilson.
Oh, Vance Wilson, former catcher.
Yep,
Vance Wilson. Number 3. Also wore number 3.
Vance Wilson. Yep.
I have so much stupid information in my Mets head right here, by the way. It's a little scary. So just to recap, we got Pedro Feliciano number 1, Heath Bell number 2, Pat Mahomes number 3, Roger McDowell 4, and Aaron Heilman number 5.
No, it was.
Yeah.
What was it?
That was it.
Yeah.
Was it? Okay, so then my brain is not working.
Yeah.
Well, anyways, just throw that out. Thank you very much for joining. I'm going to end the Instagram live right here. But Tyler, thank you so much for hopping on. As always.
Let's go, Mets.